The child couldn't have been more than 7 rotations old. Commander Vex'thor of the Kalthrian Dominion had seen countless species fold under pressure during his 300 cycles of service, but none had ever looked at him quite like this human youngling did. The tiny creature stood in the middle of what the locals called a backyard, surrounded by the smoking remains of her dwelling unit. Her face was streaked with ash and tears, but her eyes held something that made Vex'thor's 3 hearts skip in rhythm. Defiance. Move aside. Spawn. Vex'thor growled, his translator chip converting his clicks and whistles into the crude human tongue. His weapon, a plasma disintegrator capable of turning stone to vapor, hummed as he leveled it at the small figure. Your planet's resistance has ended. The humans have 20 solar minutes to surrender, or we begin systematic elimination, starting with you. The girl didn't move. She just stood there, clutching something small and furry to her chest. Vex'thor's tactical officer, a scarred veteran named Quinlar, shifted uncomfortably beside him. Commander, perhaps we should select a more visible target for the demonstration. The human governments monitor their young closely. This could accelerate their capitulation. Precisely my calculation, Vex'thor replied, adjusting his aim. The weapon's targeting system locked onto the child's biosignature. Broadcast this on all frequencies. Let them watch their future burn. That's when Vex'thor heard it. A sound that would haunt him for the rest of his considerably shortened life expectancy. A sound that started low, building into something between a snarl and a battle cry. But it didn't come from the child. It came from behind him. Yo, Bugface. The voice was distinctly human, distinctly female, and distinctly unimpressed. You just made the worst mistake of your probably very long, very boring alien life. Vex'thor spun, his mandibles clicking in irritation. Standing at standard, the edge of the destroyed property line was a human female, approximately 25 Earth years, if his database was accurate. She wore torn denim pants, a shirt that proclaimed, "I pet dead things for science," and an expression that could only be described as professionally annoyed. More importantly, she was holding what his scanner identified as a primitive chemical projectile weapon. The humans called it a shotgun. Stand down, human, Vex'thor commanded, though something in his combat programming was screaming warnings he didn't fully understand. Your weapons are ineffective against Kalthrian battle armor. You cannot harm us. The woman tilted her head, and Vex'thor noticed her name tag. It read, Dr. Morgan Hayes, Wildlife Rehabilitation Specialist. Oh, sweetie, she said, and the way she smiled made Vex'thor's primary combat gland secrete fear pheromones. I'm not holding the thing you should be worried about. Morgan, the child screamed. They're gonna kill everyone. They said humans have to surrender, or they start shooting kids. Morgan's smile didn't waver, but something shifted in her eyes. Something ancient and predatory. Emma, baby, I need you to do something for me. Remember what I taught you about scary situations? Emma nodded, tears streaming faster now. Close your eyes, cover your ears, and count to 50. Can you do that for me? But Morgan. Now, Emma. The child obeyed, squeezing her eyes shut and clamping her hands over her ears. Vex'thor's tactical sense finally caught up with his pride. He raised his weapon toward Morgan, but Quinlar grabbed his arm. Commander, my sensors are detecting something. Multiple somethings. The biosignatures are. I don't understand. They're registering as apex predators, but they're small. Very small. And they're moving at impossible speeds through the underbrush. Impossible, Vex'thor scoffed. Earth's apex predators are large, slow mammals. Bears, large cats. Nothing that could threaten a Kalthrian strike team. Morgan laughed. Actually laughed. Oh, you absolute idiot. You didn't do your homework, did you? See, I don't work with the big scary animals everyone thinks about. I work with the ones people underestimate. The misunderstood. The scrappy little survivors that evolution designed to have exactly zero fear of anything. She raised her free hand and made a sharp whistle. That's when Vex'thor saw them. 6 creatures emerged from the burned vegetation, each about half a meter long, with distinctive black and white markings and a wattle that would have been comical if not for the absolute murder in their small, dark eyes. His scanner went berserk, trying to classify them. Failing. Trying again. Mellivora capensis, Morgan announced cheerfully. Common name? Honey badger. Scientific name? Your worst nightmare. Let me introduce you to my patients. That's Chaos Agent up front. She's the gentle one. Behind her, that's Grudge Holder. He's still mad about the vet visit. Last month. The chunky girl on the left is pure violence. Next to her, that distinguished gentleman is war crime waiting to happen. The twins in the back are Murder Mittens and Spite Incarnate. Quinlar's scanner finally produced results. Commander, these creatures possess aggression indexes that exceed theoretical maximums. Their pain tolerance is... This cannot be correct. It says they are functionally immune to damage assessment protocols, and their bite force relative to body mass is, by the eternal swarm, they're rated as more dangerous than creatures 50 times their size. Yeah, Morgan said, loading a shell into her shotgun with a practiced motion. Honey badgers are special. They fight off lions. They shrug off cobra venom. They've been documented taking on entire hyena packs for fun. And you know what the best part is? Vex'thor was backing up now, his weapons swinging between Morgan and the advancing creatures. The honey badgers moved with purpose, spreading out in 9, what his tactical computer recognized as a hunting formation. An intelligent hunting formation. The best part, Morgan continued, is that these aren't even wild ones. These are my rescues. I've been rehabilitating them for 3 months, feeding them, caring for them, building trust. And you know what really bonds a honey badger to a human? She pointed at the smoking ruins behind Vex'thor. That used to be my house, genius. That used to be my clinic. You just destroyed months of work, thousands of hours of effort, and worst of all, her voice dropped to something cold and final. You threatened my goddaughter. Vex'thor fired. The plasma bolt caught Chaos Agent center mass, and for a moment, hope surged through his system. The creature tumbled backward, fur smoking. Then she stood up, shook herself off, and kept coming. Oh, did I forget to mention? Morgan said over the sudden chaos of Kalthrian soldiers screaming. Honey badgers have incredibly thick skin and a loose skeletal structure. Your energy weapons? They'll hurt, sure. But stopping one, you'd need to vaporize it completely. And you've got 6 of them. Grudge Holder hit the first soldier low, teeth finding the weak point in the armor's leg joint. The Kalthrian's shriek was cut short as pure violence went for his throat. War crime waiting to happen launched himself at Quinlar, and Vex'thor watched in horror as his tactical officer's face shield shattered under the assault. Fall back, Vex'thor commanded, firing wildly. Retreat to the transport. Call for air support. Call for Murder Mittens and Spite Incarnate worked as a team, one distracting him while the other circled behind. Vex'thor felt teeth sink into the weak point behind his knee joint, and he went down hard. His weapon clattered away. Morgan walked up slowly, her shotgun resting on her shoulder. Behind her, Emma was still counting, still had her eyes closed. The child would not see what came next. Here's the thing about humans, Morgan said, crouching down so she could look directly into Vex'thor's compound eyes. Around them, the rest of his strike team was being systematically dismantled by creatures that weighed less than 20 kilograms each. We're not the biggest. We're not the strongest. We're not even the smartest, if we're being honest. But we've got 2 things going for us. She held up one finger. 1, we domesticated wolves. We looked at apex predators and said, yeah, those are friends now. We've been befriending, training, and working with dangerous animals since we lived in caves. A second finger. 2, we're spite-driven persistence hunters with a grudge-holding capacity that would make gods weep. You want to know how humans conquered Earth? We didn't. We made friends with everything that would let us, and we learned from everything that wouldn't. Every animal that ever scared us, we studied it, understood it, and usually figured out how to make it our ally. Vex'thor tried to speak, but Chaos Agent had his translator unit in her mouth, shaking it like a toy. You came to our planet, Morgan continued, her voice never rising above conversational. You burned our homes. And you pointed a weapon at a child. My goddaughter specifically. Which honestly was just cosmically bad luck on your part. Because see, I don't just rehabilitate honey badgers. I've worked with everything from bears to wolverines. I've got a whole network of wildlife specialists across this continent, and every single one of them is about as mad as I am right now. She stood up, looking at the devastation around them. Smoke rose from dozens of sites across the valley. In the distance, more of the Kalthrian ships hung in the sky like metallic vultures. Your commanders are probably wondering why this strike team isn't reporting in, she said. In about 5 minutes, they're going to send another one, and then another. And each time, they're going to find out that humans don't fight fair. We fight with everything we've got, everything we've learned, and everything that happens to be angry and nearby. Quinlar, still conscious despite his injuries, managed to activate his emergency beacon. Reinforcements. Incoming. Warn them. Warn everyone. Humans are. Yeah? Morgan prompted. Humans are what? Insane, Quinlar whispered. Completely, absolutely insane. They weaponized the planet itself, Morgan grinned. Buddy, you haven't seen anything yet. Wait until the Australian contingent arrives. They've been dealing with actually deadly wildlife their whole lives. This is going to be educational. Emma reached 50 and opened her eyes. The honey badgers, responding to some signal Vex'thor's sensors couldn't detect, immediately stopped their assault and waddled back to Morgan. They sat in a row, looking disturbingly pleased with themselves. Is it over? Emma asked in a small voice. This part is, sweetie, Morgan replied, holding out her arms. Emma ran into them, and Morgan scooped her up, careful to keep her facing away from the carnage. But we need to get you somewhere safe. More of them are coming. Are we gonna die? Emma's voice was muffled against Morgan's shoulder. No, baby. No, we're not. Because you know what humans are really good at. What? Protecting our kids. Every single human on this planet just heard your scream, saw that weapon pointed at you, and every single one of them just got very, very motivated to send these guys home. Vex'thor, still pinned by 2 honey badgers, accessed his communication array with his neural implant. He had to warn the fleet, had to tell them this wasn't going to be the easy conquest High Command had promised. Earth's humans weren't just clever primates with primitive technology. They were survivors who'd spent millions of years learning from the most hostile environment in the known galaxy, a death world that had trained them to either adapt or die. And they'd chosen to adapt by making friends with things that made Kalthrian warriors look like soft, pampered larvae. His transmission reached the flagship just as Morgan was loading Emma into what appeared to be a civilian transport vehicle. The honey badgers followed, hopping into the back with practiced ease. Command. Vex'thor sent, his voice distorted by pain and fear. Abort the invasion. I repeat, abort the invasion. This species is not what we assessed. They're not just tool users. They're force multipliers. They weaponize their entire ecosystem. We cannot win this. The response came from Admiral Kreshtarn herself. Explain yourself, Commander. You face a primitive species armed with chemical projectiles and rudimentary energy weapons. Your strike team is equipped with, Ma'am, we were destroyed by 6 small mammals weighing less than 20 kilos each. The human female who controlled them has taken 0 casualties. She's evacuating a child, while her companions are now grooming each other. They're treating this like a recreational activity. Silence on the line. Then, Commander, are you injured? Your report makes no tactical sense. That's what I'm trying to tell you. Vex'thor's voice cracked. Nothing about these humans makes sense. They survive on a high-gravity world with extreme weather, aggressive megafauna, and enough environmental hazards to classify as a death world. And instead of just surviving, they thrived. They domesticated predators. They made friends with creatures that should eat them. Commander, you're clearly compromised. I'm sending Strike Team Gamma to secure your position and— No, Vex'thor screamed. Don't send anyone. Pull the fleet back. Negotiate. Do anything except attack their young. The human female said they have networks, specialists across their continents. If this is how one human with 6 small animals responds, what happens when thousands of them mobilize? But the transmission was already closing. Admiral Kreshtarn had made her decision. Strike Team Gamma was launching. Vex'thor looked up at the sky, where he could just make out the contrails of incoming dropships. 12 more teams. Each one believing they were facing inferior opponents. Each one about to learn the same lesson he had. Morgan's vehicle disappeared around a corner, and Vex'thor found himself almost hoping she'd get away. Because if this was the response of one angry human with a specialty in wildlife rehabilitation, he genuinely feared what would happen when the warriors arrived. The honey badger's feast continued. Pure violence found Vex'thor's ration pack and tore it open, consuming the contents with obvious disdain for their nutritional adequacy. Grudgeholder was systematically destroying every piece of Kalthrian equipment he could reach. And Chaos Agent, the supposedly gentle one, was sitting on Quinlar's chest, preventing him from moving while maintaining eye contact in a display of dominance that would have been funny if it wasn't. Absolutely terrifying. The first dropship landed 50 meters away, its hatches opening to disgorge a fresh squad of Kalthrian soldiers. They spread out in textbook formation, weapons ready, confidence high. Their squad leader, a decorated veteran named Trixnal, surveyed the scene. By the eternal swarm, what happened here? Humans happened, Vex'thor replied weakly. Humans and their friends. Friends? Right. Trixnal laughed. Commander, I see 6 small animals and 2 incapacitated Kalthrians. Where are these fearsome humans you warned us about? As if in answer, Morgan's voice echoed from a loudspeaker somewhere in the distance. She must have patched into the local emergency broadcast system. Attention, Kalthrian forces. This is Dr. Morgan Hayes, speaking on behalf of approximately 7.9 billion extremely pissed off humans. You've got one chance to leave our planet peacefully. Pack up your ships, drop the hostile invasion nonsense, and go home. Because if you don't, we're going to show you exactly why Earth is classified as a death world. And trust me, we've learned every trick this planet has to teach. Trixnal snorted. Primitive posturing. They cannot harm us. Also, Morgan's voice continued, I should mention that about 50 of my colleagues just released their patients. We're talking wolverines, leopards, territorial hippos from the local zoo, and one particularly angry cassowary named Gerald, who has been waiting for an excuse to mess someone up. Gerald has issues. You're about to become Gerald's therapy. Ridiculous, Trixnal declared. Advance to the human settlement. If you encounter resistance, eliminate it. The squad moved forward, leaving Vex'thor and his team behind. Chaos Agent watched them go, then looked back at Vex'thor with what he could only interpret as amusement. You should run, Vex'thor called after them. She's not bluffing. Humans never bluff when their young are threatened. But they were already too far away to hear him properly. Or maybe they heard and simply didn't care. Either way, Vex'thor knew what came next. And he was right. The screaming started exactly 3 minutes later. Strike Team Gamma lasted 4 minutes and 37 seconds. Vex'thor knew this because he was still connected to the tactical network, watching the biosignatures wink out one by one on his neural display. Not dead, thankfully. Just unconscious, injured, or in full retreat. The humans, it seemed, had a remarkable ability to incapacitate without killing when they chose to, which was somehow more terrifying than if they'd simply slaughtered everyone. A new voice crackled over the communication array. Male, older, with an accent his translator struggled to identify. G'day, Space Invaders. Name's Malcolm Torres, Australian Wildlife Conservation. Just wanted to let you know that Gerald got 3 of your blokes before we could call him off. He's calmed down now. Had a nice snack. Your mates are gonna need medical attention, but they'll live. Probably. Gerald's kicks are no joke. Another voice, female, younger. This is Yuki Tanaka, Tokyo Aquarium Director. We've released our giant Pacific octopus into the harbor, where your supply ships are docking. Hero is very intelligent and very bored. He's currently disassembling your loading equipment. It's quite fascinating to watch, actually. I'm documenting it for a research paper. More voices joined. A cacophony of humans, each reporting successful deployment of Earth's wildlife against the invasion force. Bears in the mountain regions, wolves in the forests, alligators in the swamps. Someone in Florida released what they called murder parrots, which Vex'thor's database unhelpfully identified as invasive monk parakeets with territorial aggression issues. Admiral Kreshtarn's voice cut through the chaos. Enough. Commander Vex'thor, explain this situation immediately. Vex'thor would have laughed if his thorax wasn't crushed. I tried to explain, Admiral. These humans evolved on a planet that actively tried to kill them for millions of years. They didn't just survive. They studied everything that hurt them and figured out how to make it hurt their enemies instead. We're not fighting a military. We're fighting an entire biosphere that they've spent millennia learning to weaponize. Impossible. Our intelligence indicated scattered nation-states with conflicting interests. They shouldn't be coordinating this effectively. Yeah, about that. Morgan's voice again, somehow cheerful despite orchestrating a counter-invasion. Turns out when you threaten our kids, we put aside our differences real quick. Funny how that works. Also, your intelligence was garbage. Did you seriously think we wouldn't notice giant spaceships parking in orbit? We've been preparing for this conversation since your scout ships showed up last month. Last month? Vex'thor's blood went cold. The scout ships were supposed to be undetectable. That's right, Morgan continued, as if reading his thoughts. We saw you coming. We just let you think you had the element of surprise. Meanwhile, every government, every military, every zoo, wildlife sanctuary, and crazy person with an exotic pet license has been getting ready. You want to know what humanity's greatest weapon is? It's not our technology. It's our ability to cooperate when properly motivated. A new contact appeared on Vex'thor's scanner. Something massive, moving through the nearby forest. His targeting computer struggled to classify it, then finally produced a result that made his remaining hearts stop. Ursus arctos horribilis. Grizzly bear. Mass. Approximately 400 kilograms. Threat level. Extreme. Recommendation. Immediate evacuation. The bear emerged from the tree line, followed by a human male in forest ranger attire. The man was holding what appeared to be a communication device, and looked remarkably unconcerned about the massive predator walking beside him. Commander Vex'thor? The ranger called out. I'm David Park, Forest Service. This is Bertha. She's usually pretty chill, but your ships have been stressing out her cubs, and mama bears get testy about that sort of thing. I'd recommend staying very, very still. Bertha sniffed the air, locked eyes with Vex'thor, and made a sound that his translator rendered as questioning growl, potentially aggressive. Yeah, she's not happy, David confirmed. Look, I can probably keep her from eating you, but you need to tell your boss something for me. Every park ranger, wildlife officer, and conservation specialist in North America is currently mobilizing. We know these woods. We know these animals. And we're all really tired of your ships scaring the local fauna. Quinlar, still pinned under Chaos Agent, managed to activate his communication implant. Admiral, recommend full withdrawal. This situation is untenable. The humans have turned their entire planet into a tactical asset. Denied. Kreshtarn snapped. We have orbital superiority. Deploy the atmospheric processors. If we cannot take the planet intact, we'll terraform it to our specifications. The local fauna will not survive the chemical conversion. Vex'thor felt something break inside him. Not physically. Something worse. The understanding that his people, his proud Kalthrian dominion, had made a catastrophic miscalculation. Because if there was one thing his brief, brutal encounter with humans had taught him, it was this: they did not accept defeat gracefully. Morgan's voice, when it came back over the speakers, had lost all its humor. Did your admiral just threaten to terraform our planet? David Park's expression went from friendly to something carved from ice. Even Bertha seemed to sense the shift in mood, her ears flattening against her skull. Yes, Vex'thor whispered. She did. And I am so So sorry. Don't apologize to me, Morgan said quietly. Apologize to whatever gods you people pray to. Because you just graduated from unwelcome visitors to existential threat. And humans have a very specific response protocol for existential threats. The sky above them suddenly lit up with streaks of light. Missiles, hundreds of them, launching from sites across the continent. Vex'thor's tactical computer identified them as primitive chemical rockets, nowhere near advanced enough to threaten Kalthrian ships. Except they weren't aimed at the ships. They were aimed at the atmospheric processors that had just begun descending from orbit. Did you know, Morgan continued, her voice now broadcasting globally, that humans have been building weapons capable of destroying ourselves for over 80 years? We've had the ability to render our own planet uninhabitable since the 1940s. Nuclear weapons, chemical weapons, biological agents that would make your exosuits look like tissue paper. We built all of that, stockpiled it, and then spent decades very carefully not using it on each other. The first wave of missiles struck the atmospheric processors. Explosions bloomed in the upper atmosphere, and Vex'thor watched his tactical display as 4 of the massive terraforming units went offline. But here's the thing about humans and weapons, Morgan said. We're really, really good at using them when we need to. And you just gave us a need. Admiral Kreshtarn's voice had lost its commanding edge. Cease fire. We're withdrawing. We're withdrawing. Too late for that. Another human voice interjected. This one was deeper, authoritative, backed by the weight of institutional power. This is General Marcus Stone, United Earth Defense Coalition. Your atmospheric processors were a line in the sand. You tried to kill our planet. Every nation on Earth just went to DEFCON 1. We have nuclear-capable submarines surfacing in 30 oceans. We have orbital denial systems coming online. We have directed energy weapons that we've been pretending didn't exist for 20 years. And all of it is now aimed at your fleet. This is insanity, Kreshtarn shouted. You'll destroy yourselves along with us. Maybe, General Stone replied. But we'll make sure you go first. That's the thing about humans, Admiral. We're spite-driven all the way down. If we can't have our planet, nobody gets our planet. Mutually assured destruction isn't a deterrent to us. It's a promise. Vex'thor watched his tactical display as the Kalthrian fleet began emergency maneuvers, pulling back from Earth's atmosphere. But the damage was done. Human weapons were tracking every ship, every vessel, every escape pod. They'd been caught flat-footed by a species they'd dismissed as primitive. David Park crouched down next to Vex'thor, careful to keep Bertha calm. Your people made a mistake. You saw our cities, our technology, and thought you understood us. But you didn't look at the spaces between. The forests we protect. The animals we preserve. The ecosystems we spend billions maintaining. We're not just a technological species. We're a species that never forgot where we came from. We were wrong, Vex'thor admitted. Our intelligence failed. Our tactics failed. We failed. Yeah, you did, David agreed. But here's your chance to make it right. Get on your communications array and tell your admiral something for me. Tell her that humans are willing to negotiate. We don't want genocide. We don't want to destroy your fleet. But we will if we have to. What we want is for you to leave, respect our borders, and never threaten our kids again. And if she refuses? David glanced at Bertha, then at the honey badgers still casually demolishing Kalthrian equipment, then at the sky where human missiles danced between retreating alien ships. Then we show you why humans are the only species on Earth that hunted mammoths to extinction, tamed fire, built cities in deserts, and put flags on our own moon using computers less powerful than the phone in my pocket. We're not the strongest species in the universe, but we're definitely the most stubborn. Morgan's voice came through again, softer now. Emma asked me something while we were driving to safety. She wanted to know if the aliens were going to hurt more kids. I told her no. I promised her that every adult on this planet would make sure no child had to face what she faced. So that's your choice, Commander. Help us keep that promise, or become a cautionary tale. Vex'thor accessed the fleet-wide channel, bypassing Kreshtarn's authority with emergency override protocols. His career was over anyway. Might as well end it doing something right. All Kalthrian forces. This is Commander Vex'thor. I am ordering immediate withdrawal from Earth space. Do not engage human forces. Do not deploy additional weapons. Retreat to the outer system and await diplomatic contact. This is not a request. This is a survival imperative. Vex'thor, you exceed your authority, Kreshtarn screamed. Court-martial me later, Admiral, if we're still alive. But I've been on the ground. I've seen what these humans are capable of. And I'm telling you, with absolute certainty, that if we push them further, they will find a way to hurt us badly enough that conquest won't matter. They'll make it cost too much. Silence on the command channel. Then, slowly, acknowledgements began filtering in. Ships changing course. Weapons powering down. The invasion fleet, pride of the Kalthrian Dominion, retreating from a species that still used chemical rockets and trained animals for warfare. General Stone's voice returned. Smart choice, Commander. We're standing down our nuclear response, but we're keeping everything hot and ready, just in case someone in your fleet gets ambitious. You've got 48 hours to clear Earth's orbit. After that, we start shooting. Understood, Vex'thor replied. David Park stood up, offering Vex'thor a hand. The gesture was so unexpected that Vex'thor took it automatically, letting the gesture monic human help him to his feet. Bertha watched the interaction with apparent disinterest, more focused on a particularly interesting tree. For what it's worth, David said, I hope your people learn from this. There's a lot of universe out there, room enough for everyone if we just respect each other's space. But you need to understand something fundamental about humans. We're pack animals, tribal. We protect our own with everything we have. Touch our kids, threaten our homes, and you'll find out exactly how creative we can get with limited resources. Chaos Agent finally climbed off Quinlar, waddling over to Morgan, who had returned in her vehicle. The honey badger made a chirping sound, and Morgan scooped her up, scratching behind her ears. Good girl, Morgan cooed. You're such a good girl. Yes, you are. Who's a terrifying apex predator? You are. The cognitive dissonance of watching this woman baby talk a creature that had helped dismantle an elite military strike team was almost too much for Vex'thor to process. Almost. Emma peeked out from the vehicle, saw that the aliens were no longer pointing weapons, and jumped out. She ran straight to Morgan, who caught her in a one-armed hug while still holding Chaos Agent. Are they leaving? Emma asked. They're leaving, baby. You're safe now. Did Gerald really kick 3 of them? Gerald kicked 3 of them so hard they're going to be telling that story in alien bars for the rest of their lives, Morgan confirmed. Emma looked at Vex'thor with those impossibly large human eyes. Are you going to come back and hurt us again? Vex'thor knelt down, bringing himself to the child's level. It was a gesture of submission in Kalthrian culture, and he meant every bit of it. No, youngling. We will not return. You have my word. Your species has taught us a valuable lesson today. One we should have learned before we ever entered your system. What lesson? That strength is not always about size or technology. Sometimes, it's about courage. About protecting those who cannot protect themselves. About standing up when falling down would be easier. He paused, trying to find the words in this strange, complex language. You stood in front of my weapon and did not run. That is a kind of bravery my people have forgotten. Thank you for reminding us. Emma considered this, then stuck out her tiny hand. Friends? Vex'thor looked at that small hand, remembering how close he'd come to ending this child's life. Remembering the contempt he'd felt for humanity just hours ago. Remembering how thoroughly they dismantled that contempt with a combination of wildlife management and calculated fury. He took her hand gently in his foreclaw. Friends? Admiral Kreshtarn's voice crackled over the communication net one last time. Commander Vex'thor, you are hereby stripped of rank and ordered to return to the flagship for court-martial proceedings. Understood, Admiral. I'll accept whatever judgment comes. But I stand by my decision. David Park snorted. You know what? Screw that. General Stone, you still listening? I'm here, Ranger Park. This Kalthrian, just saved both our species from a really ugly conflict. He also made friends with a 7-year-old girl after threatening her life, which takes some serious character growth. Any chance we can offer him asylum? A long pause. Then General Stone laughed. Actually laughed. You want to give an alien invader political asylum? I want to give a whistleblower protection. He went against his chain of command to prevent a massacre. That's worth something in my book. Mine too, Morgan added. Plus, he let my honey badgers chew on him without fighting back too hard. That shows restraint. More voices chimed in. The Japanese aquarium director, the Australian ranger, others from around the world, all offering support for the alien commander who'd called off an invasion. General Stone sighed. This is the weirdest first contact scenario in history. Fine. Commander Vex'thor, if you want to stay on Earth as a diplomatic liaison and general reminder to your people about why they shouldn't mess with us, we'll grant you asylum. But you're going to spend the next year giving interviews, writing reports, and explaining to every government on the planet exactly how your species assesses threats. Deal? Vex'thor looked at Emma, still holding his claw, at Morgan with her rescued honey badgers, at David and Bertha, at this impossible, beautiful, terrifying planet that had defeated his people with creativity and righteous anger. Deal, he said. 3 months later, Vex'thor stood in a lecture hall at the newly established Earth Defense University, facing 200 human military officers, scientists, and wildlife specialists. Emma sat in the front row, coloring in a notebook while Chaos Agent snoozed at her feet. The Kalthrian Dominion has submitted formal apologies and reparation agreements to the United Earth Council, Vex'thor explained, his translator now perfectly calibrated for human languages. We are sharing our technology, our star charts, and our intelligence on other potential threats in this region of space. In exchange, Earth has agreed to not immediately weaponize everything we've taught them. Laughter rippled through the audience. General Stone, sitting in the back, raised his hand. About that. Define immediately. More laughter. Vex'thor had learned to appreciate human humor, though he still didn't entirely understand it. The key lesson from our failed invasion, he continued, is that humanity represents a unique threat profile in the galaxy. You're not the most advanced species, you're not the most powerful, but you are, without question, the most adaptable. And adaptation, combined with your instinctive pack loyalty and your planet's diverse ecosystem, makes you nearly impossible to conquer through conventional means. A young officer raised her hand. So basically, don't mess with humans because we're crazy? I would phrase it as remarkably resilient, with a strong tendency toward creative problem-solving and disproportionate responses to threats against your social groups, especially your offspring. That's a fancy way of saying we're crazy, Morgan called out from the middle row. Perhaps, Vex'thor admitted. But it is the kind of crazy that keeps species alive in a dangerous universe. The Kalthrian Council has already shared your defensive success with other spacefaring civilizations. There is now a general understanding that Earth is to be approached diplomatically, never militarily. Good, Emma said without looking up from her coloring. Because Morgan says if anyone else points guns at kids, she's going to release Gerald globally, and nobody wants that. The entire lecture hall erupted in applause. That evening, Vex'thor sat with Morgan, David, and Emma in what remained of Morgan's property. The house was being rebuilt, funded by Kalthrian reparations. The honey badgers had their own climate-controlled facility now, also funded by Kalthrian guilt. Gerald the cassowary had his own Wikipedia page. You ever regret it? Morgan asked, handing Vex'thor a beverage her species called beer. He'd learned to tolerate it. Giving up your rank, your fleet, your whole life? Vex'thor watched Emma play with Chaos Agent, the child and the predator now inseparable friends. No. My old life was built on assumptions that were wrong. This life, strange as it is, feels more honest. Plus, we have better food, David added. Kalthrian ration packs are terrible. This is accurate, Vex'thor agreed. Emma climbed into Vex'thor's lap, something that had horrified him the first time she'd done it. Now he automatically adjusted to support her weight, careful of his sharp edges. "Tell the story again," she demanded. "Which story?" "The one about how I stood up to the big scary alien and became friends with him." Morgan smiled. "That's your favorite story now?" "Yeah, because it ends with everybody being okay, and the alien learning that humans are actually nice if you don't try to shoot us." "Mostly nice," Vex'thor corrected gently. "Also terrifying. Do not forget the terrifying part." "Right," Emma agreed solemnly. "Nice and terrifying. That's us." And somewhere in orbit, a newly arrived alien science vessel received an automated message from Earth Defense Command. It was simple, direct, and accompanied by video footage of honey badgers, cassowaries, and one very determined wildlife rehabilitator. The message read, "Welcome to Earth. We come in peace. Please maintain peaceful intentions. We have Gerald." The science vessel immediately sent a diplomatic greeting, requested permission to establish communications, and made absolutely certain their weapon systems were powered down and visible to Earth's monitoring stations. Humanity had arrived on the galactic stage, not as conquerors, not as victims, but as the species that had looked at their own planet's attempts to kill them and decided to make friends with the danger instead. The universe would never be quite the same, and Gerald was very, very pleased with his new fame.